So yeah, PureRef, definitely go get it. It's very, very vital to just the creative process in general. So right here, this is where you're gonna find it. Now let's move on to kind of blocking out our scene. So to really get a handle on the scene, I'm gonna just show you guys how PureRef really works. So here I have opened up PureRef right here, right? And this is how it comes. They don't have like any distracting, the close menu or anything like that, and in their toolbar, right? So what you're gonna need to do is, you just find wherever your reference folder is, right? And then, right, so here's my Zelda reference, and it's a pretty cool little piece of software. So I'm just right-clicking, and I'm dragging it over here, and then I can select all of my reference, like so. Shift, select all of them at once, and then just drag and drop them here. And it does its little calculation like that, and when you scroll out, it's put every one of your inspiration images into a collage for you. All right, and then you can right click and then you can save it out. So you can save as, let's find my pool of, so I'll just name it Zelda _refs, right? And if you're like, oh man, I found a bunch more references that you want to use, well, you can go right back, drop some more in, it'll collage them up for you. And it's a pretty cool little piece of software because it keeps the native formats of the images. So, if this one's super big, and it keeps all of those ratios the exact same, and you can still, you can zoom in, zoom out. And I usually have this on like a separate monitor. I've got like a 3 monitor setup right now. So I'll put one on my little monitor. I'll put this like as reference, and I can zoom in if I have a question about something. So this is how I, kind of work to really maximize my my creative flow. Because the worst thing you're gonna want to happen is like you're trying to get in that creative flow and you can't find the reference to the image, or you can't find the image that'll help you quickly move on from that part, and then you lose your motivation, and you don't feel like doing it. So this will kind of keep you kind of inspired, because you might get tired, you're like, man, I don't know what to do, and then you look at this and you're like, okay, like there's this piece that I still get to do, and there's this piece, and then I can do this, right? So you can inspire yourself and keep yourself going when you have all of your creative your creative flow right in front of you, ready to go. You can see it. So what I'm going to do is, like I just said, I'm going to move my PureRef board here to the side, and then we can go back into 3ds Max. Right, so here in 3ds Max, we are going to do today is what we're going to just do is set up our scene, set up the the way everything's kind of gonna work, our camera, what we're modeling to, and yeah, that's pretty much it. We're gonna set up our scene, and then maybe if we have a little time, do an element of 1 or 2 big things. And it's not supposed to be a crazy kind of breakdown or anything. It's just supposed to be something that is simple, understandable, and then you can move through there. You can even use those colors. Well, that's probably what I'm gonna do. I'll use the colors that I used in my breakdown, just to give you guys the idea. So let's start up no board. Let me start up no board. There we go. This is the one I like. It shows everything, my number pad, middle mouse click, everything. So you guys should be able to see that on screen right now. Let me see. Let's go to my picture-in-picture. All right, here is our keyboard. Let's unlock it for a second. See, there's nothing here. Let's make it a little bigger for you guys. All right, hopefully that helps. To kind of clarify everything that's going on in, let's see. All right, so you can see my mouse, right, left, middle click, so there's not going to be any confusion as to, you know, really what I'm doing at any given time. So, all right, let's dive into this thing. So the first thing we really want to do is we want to, whenever we open up 3ds Max, we want to set up our scene and make sure we're working in, you know, the right unit setup, because if you work in the wrong unit setup, what you can find is that you will think you're working at the right scale, but you'll be making something that's like a miniature when you want to be making something that's like kind of real world scale. So it'll really mess up your scale if you don't understand a little bit of the nuts and bolts of what's going on under the hood. And that pretty much goes for any software. You want to know where your units are so that whenever you're trying to do something, right, you know that you're modeling it to the right size, so that when you, if you ever want to 3D print anything you make, you know you made it at the correct scale. You made it, you know, you might want to make a you know, a model scale, you know, X-Wing or something like that, or a TIE fighter, and you find that, hey, I made it to the scale of, you know, a TV, or, you know, and 3D printing it is going to be hard if you have to scale everything down, and then your shapes get bigger because you're scaling them down. So you want to understand how you're modeling. You want to understand what's going on with your scale, your measurements, so that you know that when you make something 6 feet, it's 6 feet. You make something 5 feet, it's 5 feet, right? So, and that's important because, you know, we have characters in this, and characters are a certain height. So if your characters are a certain height, you want to make sure that in your software, whatever your software is, you want to make sure you're working in the correct scale. So to do that in 3ds Max, what you're going to need to do is you're going to open up 3ds Max like so, right? It's open up right here. And you're going to go into your customize menu right here at the top of your toolbar. And what you're going to want to do is go into unit setup. So your unit setup. And right here, what a lot of students think, or what a lot of people I found think, is that when they set this up to be like in this, because you've got 4 different options when it comes to the display units right here. So there's metric system, which we don't use in America, the US standard, there's custom, and then there's generic 3ds Max units, which is like 1 to whatever, however many. Doesn't really have a, you know, any feet, inches, millimeters. It doesn't have anything attached to it in that sense. And then there's your lighting units. Do you want it to be lit internationally or in the American standard? I use international, but American works just fine. Those two don't matter. What I really want to get you guys to think about is, here in your display units, yes, you want to set them to feet, fractional inches, right? But this is just how it displays your units, right? It's the display unit scale. This doesn't affect the actual object itself. What's going to affect the object is the system unit setup. So you have to click into this menu right here, right? And this is going to bring up your actual system units. And in your system units here, you want to make sure you have it to something like 1 is equal to 1 an inch. If you're working with construction, a lot of contractors use like centimeters or millimeters or whatever they're using. If you're working on something massive, right? The reason they give you these options is because depending on the thing you're working on, right, you might be measuring that object in inches, feet, miles, millimeters, centimeters, meters, kilometers, right? You could be using any of those. So like if I'm modeling something for jewelry, right, I'm going to be doing something in millimeters. But if I'm doing something for like a building, right, what my size units would be in centimeters or something, or meters or something like that, or feet. You know, if I'm modeling something that is like a handheld, you know, something that I have in my hand or something, I might want to do inches or feet, you know. So you have these for use case scenarios. Each you know system unit has a use case. And right now what we're doing is we're making something that has, like, in the background it's like vast expanse, and then we have a character that is, you know, a humanoid. So most humans, right, we measure our height based in feet, right? But for our purposes, right, if we just use feet for everything, it's going to be hard for us to get like granular with things. So I usually like to do inches, right? So I can do, you know, 6 feet 8 inches, 5 foot 10 inches, right? Like I can do that, and I will know that I'm basing everything off of inches. Right, so 1 unit, like, so every time you see 1 in that display, it refers to an inch, right? So that's how you got to think about this, and this is where you would go to, and you can even change it. You can go every 2 units, right? Every 2 of those generic 3ds Max units, you're getting 2 inches, right? So you can set it up however you want, or 1 unit is 2 inches. So you can set it up however you want. You can have 1 unit be 2 inches, 1 unit be 3, 5, you know, whatever you want to do, but you have to make sure that this is where you make those changes. And if you don't understand it for this project, right, just set it to 1 unit is equal to an inch. All right, so I'm going to hit OK here. Now I know that, all right, my system unit is set up in inches. Now that I'm in here, I know that when it displays for me, it's going to display with feet and fractional inches. So I'm going to hit OK. I know that my system setup is complete. And now what we're going to create is, let's create a box, right? So we're going to create a box. And now if you see my box, right, I hit, let's do, let's hit P on the keyboard to get in our perspective view. So now my height is 81. Well, I already did a little, you know, preliminary research, and I found out that Link is actually just 5'7" in this game, right? In different games, he's different sizes and stuff, but he's 5'7", so he's going to be our metric for this scene. So the first thing I kind of want to do is get an idea of what Link's size is. So I can do a height of 5 feet, right, on my keyboard, 7 inches, right? So his, you know, I can make him 1 foot, and this is just, let's go Y, and then let's hit A to rotate 90 degrees right there. So this is our Link, and he is the correct size, right? And this is just an approximation, right? And the reason we use this is we use this for as like a guide. You have a ruler in here that you can use, but I always like to have like a visual guide. And so the next thing I can do is now I'm going to go to my front view right here. And what I want to do now is I'm going to create a plane. And this plane is going to include, this plane is going to have our reference image in it. So now I've got my plane all made and ready to go. I don't want to see this grid anymore, so I'm just going to hit G on my keyboard like that. And I want to pull, you know what, let's actually square this off, or zero this out, as people like to say. So let's hide that. So if I want to zero this out, and what zeroing out means is that I take all my coordinates and I put them on 0, 0, 0. So if you look at your coordinate system right in here, you've got Z, X, and Y, right? X, Y, Z, right? Different programs have Y in different positions. than others, right? Sometimes Y is up, sometimes Y is down, right? So you want to pay attention to things like that. And that's why a lot of, I'm like, depending on the program you like, it really, it's up to the program to determine what all this is. But you want to know that these are your coordinate systems, X, Y, and Z. And they usually relate to up, I think it's left and front and back, left and right, and then front and back. So X is left and right. Usually Z or Y is up and down, depending on the program you're using. So in this one, it's Y is up and down, and Z is should be back and forth, or Y is back and forth. So I use like 10 different programs, so they always get mixed up. So let's zero this out. To zero this out, right here at the bottom of my toolbar, if I look at these arrows here, these up and down arrows, it allows me to manually kind of pull them up and down. Or I can enter values in here if I want to. So I can just hit Control A, 0, tab, 0, tab, and then Control A, 0. And that will effectively zero out this plane that I have here. So if I hit G on the keyboard, right, what I've done is, you see these two black lines where they intersect is the 0, 0, 0 origin of the world. This is the start of everything. If there was a Big Bang, that would be the point of the Big Bang right there, right? So what you're going to see is now this lines, right, they all converge at the 0, 0, 0. And what we're doing is we're zeroing out the center of this, right? So we're zeroing out the center of this plane to match the center of the world, essentially. All right. So now I'm going to hit G again to remove my grid. I don't want to see that anymore. So now I'm going to zero out my length and my width segments. SEGS is just an abbreviation for segments. So if you see that, you're like, segs? What's the segs? They're segments. So in these segments, it divides up our plane. We don't need any of that. I'm just going to zero those out, right? And 0 usually here means 1, which is, I think 0 doesn't exist for some reason in this program. It's not because 0, I guess, is not a number. So, all right. So let us right click, and what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to the modifier tab. So here in our modifier tab, we're going to drop down this modifier list, and we're going to throw a Uvw map on here. And this Uvw map is going to allow us to place images onto our plane. And to do that, I can scroll down, right? And I always say this as like a little joke, but there's usually like 2 or 3 ways to do things. But the most important ways that you guys should learn is there's 2 ways to do things in 3ds Max. There's the cool person way, or the cool guy way, as I like to say, or there's the granny way to do it, which is you're going to be scrolling or you're going to be mousing around. The best thing that I can tell you guys is to learn the hotkeys as soon as you possibly can, right? And learn the shorthands for how to do things in whatever software you're in, because it just speeds you up just enough to where that might be the difference between you getting a job done on time and you having to wait an extra 10-15 minutes, because the little time that you take to do things adds up in 3D space, right? And when it comes to somebody who models a little faster than you, who do you think they're going to hire? The guy who takes a long time to do stuff, or the guy who does it real quick and it's the same quality? So you just want to give yourself the little edge. So my little edge tip for you guys right now is, if you're looking for something and the first letter of what the modifier is, just hit it on your keyboard and it'll take you to that. So I'm looking for the U's, so I'm looking for an Uvw map. So if I hit U, it's going to take me to the top of the list of U's, and I can just find my Uvw map. I've put it on here. We can't see it right now because I'm in a different view mode, right? And to change our different view modes, once again, I'm going to show you guys 2 different ways to do this. There is the cool guy way, and then there's the granny way, right? No offense to grannies or anything, but You know, there's the slow way to do things, or there's a much faster way to do a lot of things. So the slow way would be to go here to the top right corner in this third bracket that you have here, this fourth bracket, sorry about that. You've got your different view modes. So you've got default shading, faceted, your bounding box, your flat color, your hidden line, right? You can go that route, or hear me out. You can hit F1. Oh, nope, not F1. F2, F3, and F4. So F2, if you toggle it, will allow you to, whenever you have a selection mode, boom, you can show that. But F3 is your wireframe mode, right? F4 is default shading, right? So you can toggle between those to see those different modes that you need. All right, edged with faces or default, right? And you can toggle it on and off. Edge faces, default shading. So I'm gonna hit P again to get back into my perspective view. And yeah, so that's another little tip that I wanted to give you guys. So now that I've got my Uvw map set up, I want to add my bitmap to this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my material editor, right? Another tip, you can go up here, right here, to the material editor, but also what it shows you is if you hit the hotkey M, it'll pull up your material editor as well. So I'm just going to hit M on my keyboard. Boom, pops up my material editor just like that, and I am good to go. So now what I want is I want to create a physical material. I've grabbed my physical material, I've brought it on to my material Slate Editor. So there's two different types of editors in here. There's the Slate Editor and there's the Compact Editor, which is the legacy. When I say legacy, I mean that's the original way that we used to have to texture things inside of 3ds Max. So the new way is a node-based approach, which is you pull out these little nodes that do things, and then you can use a wire to kind of connect them to where you want them to go. And the difference is this is more visual. So if you're a visual learner, this might be a little easier for you. It definitely made texturing a lot easier for me, because now I could see what was going on and not just be like, okay, this goes into here, and then you're clicking random buttons that take you to different places. Here, what you see is what you're essentially going to get out of the render. So it's a pretty cool way to kind of texture. And a lot of software are going towards node-based approaches, even video software. If you ever use DaVinci Resolve, their Fusion editor is node-based, right? And a lot of compositing softwares are getting to that point where that's how they are, where everything's kind of going to the node-based, because a lot of people it's a little friendlier, and it's a lot easier for people to kind of grasp and understand what's going on. So now what I want to do is I want to grab a node that is going to find my poster image, right? So that node is a bitmap node, and that is located in the maps selection in general, right? And if this seems too daunting for you and you're like, okay, which one did he go to? I didn't know. Okay, right? You can search here by name, right? So if you know what you're looking for, this top bar right here is a search bar. So you can just enter text in there and it'll pull things up. It'll pull nodes up for you. You just have to know what you're looking for, right? And I already know where this is nested, so I'm going to go right click, maps, generals, bitmap. And what that's going to do is it's going to prompt me to say, hey, you want to find a bitmap, right, bro? Link to it. I'll pull it up for you. I'll do all the work for you. All right. So I want to show you that that's how it does it automatically. I'm going to cancel it because if I cancel it, this is the node that I get, and I'd rather show you guys how it works personally rather than, because it automatically does that now. It didn't used to always automatically do it. It'll just bring up the node and then you'd have to go and search. So I want to show you guys how to do that so you don't get confused whenever it happens. So right here, I've got your bitmap open right here. This is it. I can double click to it, and now it shows up in our modifier tab to the right hand side. If your modifier tab is somewhere else, you can drop it, drag and drop anything here, right? You can drag and drop it, you know, anywhere. So don't be nervous if your modifier tab is missing. And if you can't find it, you might want to look up here in your tools, right? If it's unchecked, you got to check it out, you know, check your you know, your tools panel up here. So don't be scared. Like if you miss something, if you mess something up, it's fine. You're not supposed to know where everything is right now, and that's why I try to go as in depth with this stuff as much as I can. And I might not even get to the, you know, the modeling, and that might be next class, but I'm gonna get as far as I can today, trying to show you guys so that it demystifies everything for you. Because at first these programs seem super daunting, but the more you get in them, the more you feel comfortable with what you're doing, the more you kind of mess around, the better you guys are going to be. So as I've selected this guy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my bitmap section, and I'm going to click on this none right here, and this is going to bring, you know, it's going to pull it up. This is where I can now go search for my pool right here of my references, and now this is where I can go and I can find my my poster. So if I hover over it, it tells me the dimensions of it, and this one's 494 by 741. That's really small. This one is the big image right here, so I'm going to select this guy, right? And here in our bitmap view, right, we want to make sure it's set to the texture in an explicit channel and an explicit map channel. The map channel is 1. That's fine. That's good, all good and dandy. If we want to see what we brought in, we can just click on this view, and what it's going to do is it's going to bring up a view of what our model is, or not our model, our reference image is. And if we want even more detail, we can right click on the image, right, and it'll tell us the width, the height, the aspect ratio, the gamma, right? It gives us a lot of information. It even gives us that pixel that we've selected, right? It gives us information on that pixel specifically. It's got 30 red, you know, 44 green, 55 blue. So these are this program does a lot of good things, a lot of things under the hood that if you guys knew, you'd be like, oh man, that just makes my job a little easier. So you can even color pick certain areas and then use that to paint or do whatever you need to do for the finishing process. So we've closed that. We know where our image is, that it's correct. What I want to do now is, I told you guys this was visual. So what I'm going to do is this little sphere right here and all of these, you can drag this, right? And what I want to do is I want to drag that guy into the base color. And what that's going to do is it's going to color this sphere, right, using this image that we just brought in. This physical material has its own standard base color, which is great, but we've overridden that, right, with our bitmap. We've said, no, we're gonna forego your little gray material over here, and we're gonna put our own thing on it. That's what we want to do, right? And right now, it's already set up to show up in our viewport. So if I just select it and I hit this Assign to Material button that you can find right at the top of your toolbar here, boom, it's gonna assign it to this image, or to that plane that we have on there, right? And it looks good, but I want to be super sure that it is correct. And what I mean by that is I want to make sure that my aspect ratio is actually 1:1, right? And it's not 1:2 or 1:3 or anything stretched or anything. So the easiest way is, we've already set it up in the long run. We've already set it up with our Uvw map, and that's going to help us immensely. What that's going to do is, now I'm going to go to my front view, and I'm just going to make an instance. Let's make this a copy. And what I want to do is this one that's on 000, this is our final, this is the old one. and I want to see if anything changes. So I'm going to go into our Uvw Map. I've clicked on it. It's pulled up in our browser over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll it down, and I'm going to go to Bitmap Fit. There's these little set of tabs, these little buttons right here, right? I'm going to go into Bitmap Fit, and what that's going to do is it's going to bring up, usually if it's mapped correctly, it'll bring up that same folder. It'll go, hey, what do you want us to fit a bitmap to? What bitmap do you want us to fit? We're going to select this, and what it's going to do is it's going to make sure that it is at the proper aspect ratio, right? Whatever that image was saved out as is going to be correct. And as you can see, it wasn't correct because what it originally does is it maps it to that plane. But what we want is we want the true aspect ratio of that image. These are elements that are very important to 3D modeling because it means that you're modeling from something that's as correct as possible, rather than, right, if we had modeled to this first one right here, we would have modeled this entire thing wrong because our image is stretched, right? And this is something that's hard for new beginners to kind of understand and learn, is that if you're modeling from something that is skewed and stretched and wrong, it's wrong no matter how good you texture that thing. No matter how good your finishing is, it is still wrong. This Zelda over here is a little thicker. It's a little chubbier because the aspect ratio has been elongated. And we don't want that. To fix that, you throw that Uvw map on. So anytime you guys are going to model something, you want to make sure that your aspect ratio is correct. In 3ds Max, this is how you do it. In other software, I don't know how to do it, so I can't really tell you guys that. But you want to make sure that your aspect ratio is correct so that when you're modeling, you know what you're modeling is correct. So now we can delete this guy. We know that guy is fake. And you can see that after it makes sure that it's the, and then it just tiles it over and over and over again. So what I can do now is I can go into my plane and then just reduce the width to where I get just my image. So now I know that I've got a perfect kind of image there. So now let's unhide all. So I've unhid everything from here. So the first thing we can notice now is that our image is too big. It's too big because Link is supposed to be 5'7", and we know that he's supposed to be 5'7" because we've looked it up online. We did our due diligence, we did our research, and we know he's 5'7", and 5'7" is this box that we've made right over here. So what we can do now is we can scale our image down so that Link is the height of this box. And we know that from then on, our image is, this is pretty accurate to what the Link character would be. And whenever we save it out, we can render out whatever size image is. But we know that our Link is actually 5'7", so he's correct to the real world of Zelda. If they wanted to place our Link in the game, he would be the exact same size as the Link in the games. So that's what we're doing now. So now I'm just going to hit R on my keyboard, right? So W is move, E is rotate, and R is our scale tool, right? These are also, I'm going to show you guys the slow way to do it, right? You can also go up here and then click them, or W, E, and R. W, E, and R. These are your movement tools. These tools will save your life and speed you up. Little things like this will speed you up. Just keep these in memory. As you can see that I'm just clicking them, cycling through them on the on-screen keyboard, right? So R for scale, and I'm just gonna scale this guy down, and then I'm gonna bring this guy. Just make sure that our Link is 5'7". Right, everything else we're gonna just probably fake. Right, we might make it, we might even just if we get to the point where we've done all of this stuff, we might just take a picture or something and put it back there and then turn it painterly or something. But however I'm feeling throughout the classes, I'll let you guys know, and we'll gauge it. We'll gauge it as we go on. So I'm making sure that our link and this box link is the same size. I like the name box link. That's what we're gonna call him, box link. All right, don't be mean to box link, guys. He's very square. All right, so yep, we've got box link here. We've got our actual link. They're about the same sizes, and now we can hide it. So if we hit Alt and X, we can go into an X-ray view of our link over here. You can do an X-ray view. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually hide this selection. We're gonna select this our poster. We make sure it's on. Let's make sure it's 0, 0, 0 again. We're gonna zero it out. And now what I want to do is I want to freeze it so I can't like just select it and move it like I just accidentally did. So select it, right click, object properties, and then I'm going to do, instead of showing frozen in gray, I'm going to uncheck that and I'm going to freeze it and I'm going to hit OK. So now when I try to select, I can't select it anymore, and now it's just a true piece of reference, right? And that's kind of what we want. All right, so we've got about 10 more minutes. So what we're gonna do is, with those 10 minutes, we are let's see, I'll wrap it up for today here, and then next class we will deal with, we'll start blocking it out. So I think this is going to be a lot for you guys to do, just to get your scale, your referencing, and make sure everything is right. So we'll do that. Post your update to how, where you got, if you got into any troubles, if your scale is off, right? Make sure that everything's good, and then we'll pick up next class. So does anybody have any questions for me?